What's going on, and welcome to the plate carrier review series. And in this first video, we're going to be going over the Crye Precision AVS plate carrier, or the Adaptable vest system. Now, with that said, and not to insult anybody's intelligence, yes, it is probably the most adaptable plate carrier on the market, if not the most adaptable plate carrier on the market for multiple mission sets, environments, and duty positions. So with that said, this is a very adaptable, very modular system. I am going to give you my recommendations to help cut costs on how much you are going to end up paying for this thing, so that way it saves you money in the long run and you're buying something that is going to be a little bit more adaptable, a little bit more modular. It will address multiple mission sets, multiple environments and positions, and then that way you're not paying that $2,000 to $3,000 price tag in purchasing all the parts and components and everything that you can get for this thing. So with that said, I'm going to dive right into this thing because it is a crazy system. There is a lot going on. This is probably one of the most complex reviews that I've ever done so far. Especially compared to some of the other plate carriers that I'm working on right now. This thing is way more intricate and complex than I initially thought, but it is also pretty simple when it comes down to it. So with that said, I'm going to talk about all the parts and components that are on the table and some of the stuff that's online. Do take into consideration, just because it says AVS on some of these parts online, it doesn't mean you can't adapt them to some of the other plate carriers that Crye has, like the JPC and like the SPC. So do take that into consideration. I will be doing reviews on those plate carriers in the future, so stay tuned for those, but let's focus on this AVS system. So when it comes down to it, you have 3 different plate bags for this system that you can get. You can get the swimmer's cut, you can get the MBAV, and you can get the standard plate bag. So when it comes down to it, the MBAV is what you see right here. You have this flared plate bag. These were designed for some soft body armor that you could run in them. The standard plate bag, you just cut these little flares off and you have a straight kind of rectangular plate bag. And then you have the swimmer's cut. I recommend that you go with the swimmer's cut, because if you go with the swimmer cut, you're going to be able to utilize it for maritime, ground, and airborne operations. There are ways that you can configure that swimmer's cut plate bag with the Cummerbund to where it will run almost identical to a JPC, whether it's a 1.0 or a 2.0. That's my personal preference and my recommendation, just because of how I've seen this whole entire system work. I would absolutely go with that swimmer's cut because it's going to give you a broader mission set and environment adaptable system. So take that into consideration. Those plate bags are going to run you anywhere from $315 to $345. So like I said, take that into consideration. Next we have the harness system. So the AVS harness system, like Crye Precision says, is the most, or is the central piece of the entire plate carrier. Like I said, I kind of tend to disagree with that, just because you can run this on its own as an independent system without this harness system. But I mean, they're the ones that made this thing, so what they say could be, there could be more truth to than what I know. So with that said, this harness system, I like to call this thing the weight distribution system, because every time I put this plate carrier on with this harness in the plate carrier, it feels like it really distributes the weight throughout the entire torso, rather than being like all on your shoulders with some of the other plate carriers that are out there. So take that into consideration. I do think this is a good piece to have with this entire system. Whether you buy the AVS plate carrier with just a few components up front and then you're progressively building the thing over time, I would absolutely over time get the harness system, because it will help make this system entirely adaptable to your mission set and to your position. So do take that into consideration, because I do think it is a good investment, but do know that you don't need to buy this. This thing costs $260, which is almost as much as some of the plate bags and is more than a lot of the components that you can get. So you can better spend your money on some of the other components to be able to have a more adaptable system, and then over time get this. So just take that into consideration. I do think it is a good piece to have over time, but I would rather have a more capable plate carrier up front that runs more like a JPC than have this harness system up front. So it just depends, but take that into consideration. I did want to talk about that, so that way you can see how that goes together. So one other quick note when it comes to the AVS system and the harness, you do have these little flaps right here that the Cummerbund section of this harness are going to fold into or just run into. There are ways that you can configure this plate carrier where you can pull this Velcro off and Velcro it into the Velcro on the front of this plate carrier. You can pull this off and then run the harness through these and then Velcro around it and all that. So check your manual when it comes down to the actual setup of this thing, because they have some tips and tricks on, I believe it's 3 different ways you can mount this whole system with this harness system. So Some of the other things when it comes to this harness system, you do have Molle on the sides. I know a lot of guys that don't run cummerbunds with this, and they just run this harness system, and then they run their pouches on the harness and have all of their equipment that they need that way. I would recommend, if you're going to set this up, do both. Use the harness, use the cummerbund. It's just going to allow you to have a more modular and adaptable system to your mission and to your both environment and position. So do take that into consideration. I do think it is well worth the investment to also have this cummerbund. Whether you get the 2-band, the 3-band, or the elastic, just take that into consideration, so that way you have a more adaptable system when it comes down to it. So moving on, that was plate bags and the harness. We're going to talk about chest rigs, placards, and mag panels. So this will run with other companies' mag panels and placards, like the Spiritus system, like you can see here. It will run that. It will run the Shaw Concepts if you want to run that. This is what I run on my Tier Tactical. It will run that as well. And then, all these are sticking to each other. And then it will also run the Haley Strategic. The only caveat is I haven't really seen a successful setup where you use these vertical Molle loops for buckles. The most successful way I've seen this set up is with the Axle system or AXL systems that come with buckles that you can kind of Molle and weave into all the Molle that's on this plate carrier on the front pockets or on the front plate bag. So do take that in consideration. If you want to see how that's configured and how that's set up, check out EOD Fish. He has an awesome channel that talks really in depth about some of the accessories that can go with this, and then he has his preference on how he likes to set up his plate carriers and all of that. Take a look at his videos. He does talk about how you can incorporate those Axle or AXL systems into the plate carrier, so that way you have the ability to run some of these other aftermarket placards that are out there. So I'm not going to tell you which one to run. I have my personal preferences when it comes down to it. I run a multitude of them just because of the different mission sets and environments and positions that I've had to fill. So just take that into consideration, because you do have adaptability with that. Moving on to the actual Crye placards that you can get with this, or panels I should say. So they have 5 in total. You have your Molle, which is this one right here. You have the M4 flat, which is an M4 triple mag with Molle on top. And then you have the stretch mag, which is just an elastic mag carrier or placard or panel that you can throw on here. Or you can get the M4 or the 762 flap. Now, any one of those is going to cost you anywhere from 40 to 100 bucks. And my recommendation when it comes to those is get one of the systems or placards or panels that has the Molle on it, because it allows you to have a more modular system and being able to set this up and configure it in a way that's going to be adaptable towards your mission set. If you get something with those flaps or that elastic, you're going to pull that Molle out of the equation, so then you don't have the ability to stack a few things on here. Like you can see with my Shaw Concepts, you have your mag panel, and then I stack these Blue Force gears on top of it, so that way I have the ability to run 3 mags in the panel. If I need to plus up to 6, because I know that mission is going to be chaotic and kinetic on the ground, then I will add extra mags, or depending on the mission set, I can utilize these for other pieces of equipment that I may need, whether it's GPSs, compasses, nav equipment, breaching equipment, or like EOD dudes that I know, they had some EOD equipment that they would run in here, multi-tools, flashbangs. I know some dudes that ran frags and smoke grenades in these. I would highly recommend against that, just because it stretches those out and can destroy the pouch. But take that into consideration, because it does allow you to utilize the Molle on those Crye placards or panels, so that way you can custom set up your entire rig to what you need it to do. So do take that into consideration. Couple quick notes when it comes to installing these things though. These things can be tricky to install, because you have these 4 Velcro straps that are going to go inside of this pocket that's going to secure that flap to the plate carrier. So you have this pocket right here, you have the black Velcro in there, so it's hard to miss. You usually have a little pull tab. There is a trick to setting this up. Take the manual that you get with your plate carrier, throw that on the interior of that, and start from the outsides and work in. If you start from the outsides and work in, you're not going to get these weird folds in these Velcro Molle flap, I guess you could say, securing devices, whatever they call these things. You just stuff those through this Velcro Molle section right here up top, fold them, just because it makes it a little bit easier to push that strap through, and then you're going to pull this thing all the way until it's flush with the panel. So your Molle section or this Molle row is going to be flush with the panel, and then you'll just tuck these inside of this black, or inside of this pocket, and then it's going to secure to that black Velcro on the interior. Now, the trick to this is you set up the section of Velcro that's in there, and then you just shift this out of the way. So then it secures it and it's nice and flat. I've seen guys really struggle with trying to put these panels on this plate carrier because they just try and stuff them in there and they fight the Velcro the entire time. Use what they're giving, or use what Crye is giving you with that instruction manual to help set this up, so that way you have an easy installation of these panels. And then that way you have a nice flat flush fit for those straps on the interior of this thing, and then you don't have weird bends and folds and all sorts of that stuff to where this thing isn't secured the way it should be. So take that into consideration. It does really help with the installation and the setup of this thing, and you won't have to spend as much time and deal with the frustrations, because you can see like these things, the Velcro, it holds to itself really well. So even trying to pull this out can be a little bit of a pain when you're swapping them. So take that into consideration. That's how I set this up. That's what I always recommend dudes that are new, that are trying to set this thing up and they're having issues installing everything. So take that into consideration. One quick thing with the plate bags before I get too far that I did forget about is you do have an admin pocket on these plate bags, which is really nice. So you have a pocket to be able to fit whatever you need in there, and then you usually have some elastic on the interior as well. I usually ran shotgun rounds in here. I know guys that ran admin stuff. Whatever you want to run in there, it is nice to have that little bit of a pocket. You can also run the phone in there as well. So I do know guys that run phones in there for different types of situations and all that. So with that said, that's pretty much the prime portion, or the primary portion, or most, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. That's pretty much the plate bags and the harness, and then the mag panels up front. So with that said, I'm going to move on to the next, which is going to be the cummerbund. So you have a couple of different cummerbunds for this plate carrier. You have the 3-band, you have the 2-band, and then you have the stretch one, or the stretch band. Stretch cummerbund, correct me there. So these are going to run you anywhere from $45 to $100. Now, I do know a lot of guys that do like the elastic cummerbunds, or the stretchy cummerbunds. I really like them because I feel like they really help with just being able to breathe and set that up. But with this system, I really don't feel like it works all that well, especially if you're running this harness system. The harness system can be pretty tight fitting if you really want it to be tight and snug to your body, which kind of prevents the use of that stretchy cummerbund. But if you don't have that harness in there, then yeah, absolutely, I would go with that stretchy, or the stretch cummerbund, so that way you have that system to breathe with you. It's not restricting you, but it's still a nice snug fit, and the whole entire plate carrier kind of feels like it's hugging you with that anyways. I know when I had the Faro Concept Slickster, I really liked that aspect of it, and then it seemed like after Faro came out with the elastic cummerbund, everybody was trying to move and transitioned over to that. So or I should say a full elastic cummerbund, not just a partial. So do take that into consideration. I would recommend going with the 3 Molle band cummerbund with this entire system, just because it does allow you the most space when it comes to Molle. It will help you run this thing like a JPC, and then if you want to run any accessory pouches on the sides or throughout the Molle section, you do have some options when it comes to that. So I would recommend going with the 3 Molle. Some things to think about when it comes to these Molle bands, whether you go with the 2 or the 3. Most of them will come with this carbon fiber insert or divider that's on the Molle. So do take that into consideration, because I really like that aspect about these cummerbunds, because it helps split the Molle. So then that way you can run pouches both on the interior and the exterior of this cummerbund, and it allows you for a lot more diverse setup and a more modular setup if you want to run plate bags, radio pouches on the interior for your side plates and your radios, and then if you want to run mission essential equipment on the exterior, you do have the ability to do that with these as well. I do know with the JPC 2.0, the cummerbund that it comes with does not have that divided system, and that, I thought that was a huge kind of letdown when it came to the JPC 2.0, because I liked having that carbon fiber divider on the interior. So take that into consideration. I would absolutely highly recommend make sure that you're getting that carbon fiber divider on those. So that said, moving on. Real quick, when it comes to the shoulder strap pads that you can get, there's a couple of different pads that are out there. It will usually come with these elastic ones. They're not bad. I don't think they're great though. When it comes down to it, you just don't have a very modular system or setup with it. You can channel cabling and all that through there, and it keeps everything nice and tight. But it is a little bit easier setup with these Velcro ones that you can get, whether you get the padded or non-padded ones. These are the non-padded ones. You can see they're pretty thin, and then these are the padded ones. So that way you have an idea of what they look like. Both of them come, or all three of them come with the elastic loops on the exterior for cabling, whether you're running radio stuff through it or you're running your hydration tubes through it. You do have that, and then the interior is pretty simple and straightforward. You just have you have your pads for these ones, and then you just have your Velcro on the interior. Now, one thing that I've done with these is I have taken these to a sew shop, and I have had loops sewn into these, so that way when you're running cabling and all that through here, it just keeps everything nice and tight. So that's something to consider if you do want to do that as well. It does help make the system a little bit more adaptable and modular when it comes down to it. So that's just a recommendation that I have. Don't be afraid to alter the equipment that you have and take it to a sew shop and have them help upgrade it, so to speak, because it does help a lot in the long run. So next we have, before I get into the zipper panels, I want to talk about the side plate pockets or pouches. So there's two different versions of these 6x6s. I've seen the ones that have, it's kind of a Velcro / Molle system that you can get for the JPC, or you can get these ones that have these loops that will go around your entire harness system. I prefer the Velcro ones just because you can molle them into the system if you're not going to run your harness. So do take that into consideration, because I do think it is an added bonus. But I do know the guys that don't like running cummerbunds with this AVS system, they like having the side plate pockets that just have this channel loop through it, so that way you can run the harness through it. But take that into consideration. Depending on your body type, you can set these up to where the plates sit up like this, or you can flip them upside down to where they sit like that. So it's just going to be kind of fitting and testing and validating your plate carrier when you're out there on the range to determine what way you want these plates to be sitting on your plate carrier. So I know some taller guys, they preferred the plate sitting up like this, and then some of the smaller guys, they preferred them sitting down, so that way the plate wasn't smashing into their armpits and stuff. So something to consider when it comes down to it. You also have the 6x9s. These are 6x6s. The 6x9s are just a little bit longer. So in conjunction with that, dudes that I know that don't run side plates, they'll run those on their sides just so that way they have a little pocket to be able to throw whatever admin stuff, usually GRGs or map stuff that's real flat that can form with the body or the cummerbund that isn't going to push into their sides and poke them. They'll usually use those for that as well. So something that you can do and adapt this to being more than just a side plate pocket. So with that said, we have zipper panels, and I'm going to flip this thing over to the back side so you can see. So you have your Molle back. I don't advise mulling pouches into this thing, simply for the fact that if you run zipper panels, it does allow you to open up this entire system to be able to address more. You can carry, not necessarily more, but you can carry pouches to be able to fill your mission set and utilize this back Molle panel for different antennas, whether you're running rigid antennas or you're running body whip antennas. You have the ability to weave all of that through here with relocators and everything else that you can think of when it comes to comms gear. I like using this back plate pocket to be able to keep all of that communications stuff in order and not have a chaotic mess all over my kit. So I would highly recommend utilizing the zipper panels with this, so that way you can put all of your mission essential pouches and components and equipment that you need for your mission in those zipper panels, so that way you can transition from one mission to the next real easily, and then that way you don't have to mess with the back plate pocket itself and the Molle and everything that's on here. With that said, there are a couple of different zipper panels that you can get on this or put on this. There's a couple. I'm not going to get into all of them that are out there, but they range from $135 to $275. My recommendation, go with the Molle one. It's, I think, the cheapest one that they have, and that way you can address and change it up for your mission and for your environment. If you have to get two, get two. If you know that you're going to be doing multiple different mission sets, so that way you have configurable setups for addressing multiple missions, environments, and positions. So that's my recommendation on it, because it does help you save just a little bit of money. I mean, 2 of those Molle panels is going to cost you as much as one of the like pre-sewn pocketed panels. The most expensive one that I've seen is $275. So you can get 2 Molle panels and customize them with pouches that you may already have and save you that extra or give you more of a modular and adaptable system rather than just having one. So that's my recommendation on that. Those Molle panels, or zip-on panels I should say, do come with a lot of interior pockets and channeling for different tools and equipment. So just make sure that you're purchasing one that has those extra pockets and everything for that. So with that said, I'm pretty sure that's everything that I got for this entire plate carrier. I hope it helps, because I know that this thing is incredibly adaptable and crazy when it comes down to it. Oh, I'm not done. I have the Molle, the Molle Cummerbunds, and then how you can set this up for the Cutaway System. So your Cutaway System is this little black cable thing right here. This is just going to weave through your shoulder strap, through your harness. You do have to have the harness to be able to set this up. And how this sets up real quick is take your cummerbund, you take your harness, and then you take this black cable, and you're just going to run and weave this from Molle into the rubber section that you have on this plate carrier, and then you're just going to go Molle to the harness system and then back and forth in between it all. So there's 5 loops in total when it comes down to it. Now if you're running the 2-band system, there's going to be 4, so that's how you set all that up. Actually there may be less, but this is a good piece to have if you do want this set up on your plate carrier. It does make it pretty easy to cut away, but do take into consideration if you're running the harness system and you're running, depending on the configuration of how you have the harness system set up, it can be, I'm not going to say it's difficult to cut this away, but you still have to mess with the harness system itself. So you can see, it can be difficult to cut away this plate carrier entirely because you have to pull that harness out. So that's what it's going to look like when you actually have all of this put together. That way you can see, my fingers are in the way. But so it's going to look like that when you have the harness together, and then you have this little tuck tab at the bottom. You pull that cable through, and then that is just going to slide right into place, like so. So that's what it will look like when it's all come together. So that way when you cut away this whole entire system, you just pull that, comes apart, and then you're good to go. So I don't really know anybody that runs the Cutaway System on this plate carrier. Most of the guys just weave the cummerbunds through these plastic D-rings or loops, and then they secure them, and then they just run their plate carrier in that more fixed configuration. So take that into consideration. I don't really like the Cutaway System on this. I've never really used a Cutaway System in general anyways, so that's just my personal preference when it comes down to how to set this up. But I did want you guys to see how that goes together and is set up, so that way you can figure out if that's what you want to have set up or not. So with that said, I don't really have anything else for this plate carrier when it comes down to it. I went well over 10 minutes. This is like a 20-minute video now. So with that said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask when it comes to this plate carrier. I know that there is a lot. I do have my recommendations, and I'll just go over those again real quick. Is go with the swimmer cut plate bags. It makes it a more adaptable system to being on the land, as well as in a maritime environment and airborne environment. You can use it as a JPC, you can use it as a maritime plate carrier, and you can use it down on the ground. So however you're going to configure this thing, depending on your mission and environments that you're working in, I would recommend going with the swimmer's cut. When it comes to the different types of placards and panels, I would get something that has Molle, so that way you have a more adaptable system. You can stack things if need be. Just don't get too carried away with stacking stuff, otherwise it'll just push you off the ground and potentially expose you. And then when it comes to the cummerbunds, go with one of the Molle systems, so that way you have an adaptable system. And then just make sure that you have that carbon fiber divider on the interior of that, so that way you can put Molle pouches both on the interior and the exterior of the cummerbund itself. So with that said, and then last but not least, zipper panels, go with the Molle ones, so that way you can address multiple mission sets. You can have a modular system and be able to set that up as needed. So with that said, that's everything. If you have any questions, please feel free, like I said, leave a comment. We'll help you out. We'll answer any questions that you have. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.